way, now I'm going to kind of show my limited knowledge by not being able to see all that there is.
I couldn't get
Okay, you're all going to hear me really well now.
Hey, nobody could hear me.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. And can we kill those lights back there? Otherwise, this is just sort of smudged. It's kind of, there we go. Oh, no, that's not going to work either. Just kill it. If anybody needs to fall asleep, I'm not horribly offended when someone does. I've done a lot of speaking on the rubber chicken circuit, so I'm used to people falling asleep right after lunch. Well, this is a project that I got drawn into 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, when I was at the SAA meeting, Society for American Archaeology, for those of you, few of you who don't know what that is. I was sitting and we had our booth across the aisle from the National Geographic booth, and this, in my sense of things, young fellow had dropped off a CD for me to look at, and asked Jason Cooper, my associate who's here, to ask me to look at it. And so I looked at these pictures of cave photographs with extinct animals and clearly human bones that were associated directly with the extinct animals. And he asked me if I would be willing. I said, well, here's what you have here. And he said, well, would you be interested in working on this? And in his terminology, quote, take ownership of the human skeleton from a research standpoint. And I basically said, lifted my pinky and said, twist my arm. And so 2 weeks after that, I gave my retirement notice, because I knew it would take way too much time for me to hold a job and do that work, and it was true. It definitely has. So, in a minute, I'll figure out how to make this thing work.
Yeah, I think.
What's forward on this piece? Left side? Okay. All right, good. Oh, that's good enough. Got it. Okay. The project I'm talking about is Hoyo Negro, the black hole. And the site Hoyo Negro is located near Tulum. Okay.
As far as
Right about in this area here,
as far as
Tulum
goes, this is what we're going to get.
Inland of Tulum on the Yucatan Peninsula in the Mexican state of Quintana Roo. The Yucatan Peninsula is basically it's a tabletop, and it consists of overlapping sequences of limestone that go way back into the Cretaceous and on to the Pleistocene, and they're still forming, of course, off the coast with coral reefs. But it has been karstified extensively, so there are many, many cave systems all over the Yucatan Peninsula, especially along the coast, coastal karst systems. And this says over 300 kilometers of cave systems. Excuse me, there have been already over 1,200 kilometers of cave system mapped in Quintana Roo alone. So it's a huge, huge cave system. And many of these caves, the second largest cave in the world is known to exist here. And once it connects with others, it'll probably be the largest, as they keep mapping it. Gives you a sense of what it looks like. The coastal karst systems have this appearance when they're underwater. These are sinkholes. It's a series of tunnels that occasionally collapse and form sinkholes. It's kind of what they look like when you're inside them. It's one of the inland ones. They're really fun to dive in. They're really beautiful. But these people who are very much like astronauts in their sense of exploration and their gutsiness, or we might say insanity. They're willing to go into these cave systems thousands of kilometers from or thousands of meters from the nearest known entrance with just a few cans of air and a scooter to make them go faster. And so it's a very dangerous thing to do. You have to be extremely well trained to do it. And the cave divers come from all over the world to do this work. And these are some of the photos. This is a photograph of one of those original cave divers, a guy named Mike Madden, who does a lot of this kind of cave diving work. He's one of the pioneers there in Quintana Roo. But you can see the amazing tunnel systems. Well, these tunnel systems occasionally contain bones, actually quite often contain bones of animals, usually extinct animals. Here what you see are the femur and tibia of a gomphotherium, an extinct elephant relative, an American elephant related to the mastodons. These are often found, also people have found camels, horses, glyptodonts, bears, a variety of other animals, and we've found quite a few too. I'll be talking about that. Also occasionally in human. To date, before our work, actually not including our work, 8 other skeletons or human skeletal parts have been found in these cave systems that are thought to be ancient, but they've really not been demonstrated to be. Here I'm citing a date of claimed radiocarbon date of 11,607 years, which would make this the oldest human skeleton in the Americas. This is not our own female. The problem is that this is a non-collagen date and no one knows what the date actually is of. And so Irv Taylor, who did the date, says he doesn't believe it's real and he will not stand behind it. And so I don't cite it, much to the chagrin of the person who reports it. But 7 others have been found, and none of them have yet been dated accurately. So they're kind of a question as to whether they're Maya or something else. This individual with that broad forehead has a very good chance of being Maya. So this is the map, sort of how the maps begin, or this sort of skeletal map that the cave divers make of the center lines of their... It's not going to be easy. Okay, what am I going to do? I think I'll do that. There we go. Low-tech version works. Okay. When they start making these maps, they make these sort of skeletal outline maps. They're marking the center line of the cave. They put down a string so they can find their way back out. It's their breadcrumb trail to get back out. And this is the Outland Cave system. It's now part of the Sakaktoon system, the second largest in the world. And you can see the cenotes by which people enter. Here's La Virgen, Oasis, Ojo del Tigre, they call it here. We call it Ishbalam, the eye of the jaguar in Maya, and a few others. But this is the basic map that they produced. Now, these fellows were diving through the cave system. 3 men, Alberto Nava, Alex Alvarez, and Franco Attolini, were busy mapping this segment of the cave, and they reached this point. They had just found Ishbalam, and Alex swam on forward while they were busy mapping in Ishbalam, and he came to this place where his light disappeared. And he swam quickly back, got the other guys, and they came in, and they kind of inspected this a little bit, and then a couple months later they came back and explored it. But as you can see, it's extremely dark, extremely black, hence the name Black Hole or Hoyo Negro. It's big. It's over 600 meters from the nearest ground level entrance. And at its greatest depth, it's 57 meters below the water surface, and that's about 67 meters below ground. Did it again. There. Here's a nice shot of it when we got it lit. This is painted with light. You can see the whole area. This is a 30-second exposure. You can see how immense it is. It's 200 plus feet in diameter at the bottom, 130 feet across here, and from the rim to the bottom at the nearest point is over 100 feet. So it's a monster. Okay, here's what the bottom looks like, lit the same way. This is the collapse of the roof from above, and so it's all covered with boulder. So in exploring this is a very complex process, but it has been mapped by our team. The same fellows who discovered it continue to map it and continue to be our lead dive team members. Here's the plan map. You see the large gallery that comes around Ishbalam, our entrance. This is a ground level entrance, but it's a 30-foot drop from the ground level. And 3 tunnels that meet, which I would refer to as the east, southwest, and northeast tunnels. And here's the profile view of it. You see how large it is. Here's the ground level, there's the water surface, and there's the first ground below the ground level. Is about 45-foot drop. Not something you'd want to really do. Okay, here's our entrance. Profile of the entrance, you get a sense of that. We're in the jungle, just so you get a sense of it. The roads are not fun to drive over, especially if you're trying to take something delicate out over them, which we were doing earlier this year. These are the low jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula. They're low because the hurricanes trim them off like a lawnmower if they get higher than 40 feet. Now, before each dive, this is very much a situation where, I learned to scuba dive for this project, but I'm too old and also too untrained to dive to 140 feet, which is where the nearest skeletal parts are. So I learned to dive primarily to understand what they face, so I know what I can and cannot ask of them. So they are, in effect, my astronauts, and I am their ground control. So I developed the plan, the research plan at Scientific of what they're going to do. It's mapping, Beto there does the planning. It didn't work. I tried it before. It's the right side. If you push the right side, you're screwed. That's the problem. Oh, there it is.
Jim, did they?
Okay.
Jim?
Yeah.
How was your Spanish, or did they?
Mi español no es tan bueno. Es mejor que antes, pero no bueno. Okay, this is what happens before every dive. You plan it, you talk about it before you ever get into the jungle. We set up procedures, written procedures for the step-by-step process, in part because some of our cave divers are engineers, and that's how they think, and so we have to have it step or they're not comfortable. So, and it makes it easier too to get things together. So when you're working on going into the ground, the cave divers are everybody but me in that picture, okay? And the fellow on the lower left is Paul Nicklin, the National Geographic photographer, who learned to cave dive to go in with them, and it was frightening at times for all of them concerned, because he was brand new at it. But what they're doing is talking about something that's about to be done below water. So that is planned, and then if I have something I want them to do and I set up some procedure for them to do it, I will demonstrate like this. In March, we actually recovered the skull and some of the other bones, but because they're so delicate and because we had to bring them out of water and over some exceedingly rough roads but could not allow them to get dry, we had to develop some very, very rigid procedures for doing it. And so I'm showing you how to put specifically exactly how to put the skull in the box with which it will be brought out. And the blonde woman there is Susan Birch. She's our hands. She is the most steady diver I may ever see. She just hang in the water motionless. So on the left you can see Ishbalam, the Eye of the Jaguar entrance. You see how small that thing is, with a stairway going down it. This is a 30-foot ladder that goes down to here is the platform, and that's the dive master standing down there on the platform, 30 feet below, like that. He's got all the rebreathers ready to go in the water. So we can presume that none of the animals we found in Hoyo Negro actually entered by this way, because they couldn't walk after they fell, and no flow of water is the opposite direction from the direction they need to go. So this is not an entrance for anything but bats. So once they go down, they are gathering all the information. We have no remote contact at the time they're in there, so we have to decide what they're going to do. They'll go in and do it, and I find out if it worked when they come back out. It can be a little disconcerting. It's sort of like the astronaut, the ground control when the guys are on the other side of the moon. They don't know what the heck's going on there either. But here, there, you can again see the immensity of this cave by looking at the two divers here, and the entrance way up there. So all the information I have is based on samples, photographs, and video.
Excuse me. Do the divers have voice communication between
No,
them?
no, they have hand signals. There are masks you can use, and there are systems for communicating now, full face masks, but those full face masks are dangerous things. They don't use them. I wouldn't want them to use it, and I don't think they're inclined to use them either. At 140 feet, this is a technical dive. They have to decompress on the way up. These people, the lead of this is a GUE cave dive instructor, so they've been at this a long time. They're all in their 40s. So what's the thing about Hoyo Negro? It's unique in that it is the only site yet in which we have found the remains of a human being, over here, arm bone, skull, etc. The legs are over there, in direct association with the bones of extinct animals. This is the pelvis and femur, rib, foot bones. There's a tooth over here of a gomphothere. So this is an extremely exciting situation, and it raised the possibility of where the animals and the human contemporaries. What has been documented so far, what I've been able to identify in the photographs I've brought up and corroborated with other paleontologists, is we have over 27 individual animals, not including the human, and not including bats and fish, because there are lots and lots of those in there. 27 animals. You can see some of them here. And you can also see in this photograph how difficult it is to see them, because the bones in the rocks are the same color and the rocks are extremely complex shapes. So here are ribs of giant ground sloth, a skull of a saber-toothed cat, and a skull of a peccary, among many other bones. There are lots and lots of bones in that picture, but I won't try to point them all out to you. We have, in the cave so far, 3 pumas, or cougars. Here's a cougar, this is skull sitting upside down right there. One leg, the other leg, shoulder blade. Basically a complete skeleton of the animal lying on the bottom, partially disarticulated. So we have 3 of those. We have 2 peccaries. Here's the lower jaw, skull, and many of the bones, or find some bones here, ribs here, scapula there, broken humerus of peccary. And this illustrates the fact that we see in many of the animals, they have broken bones. The bones broke while they were still green. This is the green bone fracture. And so these animals were injured in the fall on the way to the pit. The pit itself is a natural trap. The animals didn't go in there and come back out. There is no way out. It's bell-shaped. 2 gomphotheres. See one here. Here's the skull, the mandible, half of the pelvis, the femur, the other two are the ones you saw before. There's one of its tusks. There are also some human bones scattered in with it there as well. We have 2 giant ground sloths. This is a completely new species of giant ground sloth. This has never been seen anywhere but this individual in this cave. That's the synsacrum, or the pelvic unit of it. There's a femur there. See wood fragments. This is all bat guano scattered over the bottom of the cave. It is just absolute treasure of paleoenvironmental information. The lower jaw that shows it to be a new species is sitting right over there. Here's another of the pumas. Again, there's the skull, a green bone fracture, a green bone fractured femur from one of the giant ground sloths. Again, you see how difficult it is to see these things. I'll pore over these photographs for hours and hours and hours looking for things. They were able to recognize the skulls quickly and the bones of big animals, but the smaller bones are been a little elusive so far. So most of the animals we know from skulls. One of the other 2 pumas, or the third of the pumas there. So to give you a sense of what we have there, systematic paleontology, we have 7 carnivore species, including what appears to be a dog, which I find very exciting, because this may be our earliest dog in the Americas, as well as a very old human. So we have puma, saber-toothed tiger, bobcat, which does not live in Yucatan now, a member of the genus Tremarctos, a bear, like a South American spectacled bear, only they don't live there now, and this one does not match the spectacled bear, nor does it match the Florida cave bear, so it apparently is a new species also. Coyote, dog, and coati. Coyotes don't live there now either. Well, they have moved back in, but they're not native to the area. Hoofed animals, various kinds of herbivores. We've got, as I said, 2 peccaries, 3 tapirs, and a couple of gomphotheres. This name, gomphotheres, Cuvier is it's called the Highland gomphothere, and we found it in the lowlands. So, yeah. I've seen the dog in 1 video so far, just from March. No. Yes. No, haven't yet. Yes, definitely want to. Yeah. And then the giant ground sloths. Again, 2 species. The Shasta ground sloth, the nearest of which is far north of Mexico City. The nearest other individual is, so we're many hundreds of miles away from the previous known individual, and then this new species. Give you an idea what some of these look like. Here's a gomphothere, spectacled bear, and saber-tooth and ground sloth.
Were any of the animal remains removed from the cave?
What's that?
Were any of the animal remains removed from the cave?
Only 2 so far. No, 3. I've brought out 3 bones. We're going to bring out a couple more this next trip down. Here again, the pelvis of the giant ground sloth, or not ground sloth. Sorry, the gomphotheriid skeleton is right down below, and here is the skull of our human. And as you go, the person who's first handled the skeleton, who in effect is most intimate with it, gets to name it, and our female diver, for reasons that will become immediately obvious, named her Naiad. She's a Naiad, also a Greek, a water nymph. So a Naiad she has become. You can see how intermingled the girl and the gomphothere are. Their bones are together. There are multiple human ribs down that crevice scattered among the gomphothere bones as well. There's a sense of how the bones are distributed.
Now, who took these pictures? Was that the gentleman from the National Geographic?
No, one of our cave divers is a underwater photographer.
Okay.
Almost all of these are his photographs. Roberto Chavez Arce, you'll see his name copyright on a lot of these. He's the one who took most of them. The only one, the 2 Paul Nicklin took were the one with the multiple divers in view in separate distances and the cover one, the front page one. He's only been down there with this one. So, what we know about the girl, is that we have her in multiple scattered segments. We've got an arm in one place, legs in another, skull and part of the shoulder girdle in a third, and a cluster of ribs in a fourth. She was small and really thin. I'll show you some more of that here in a little while. She was actually not 16 or 19. I thought I'd changed this. 15 to 16 years old. She had broken arms. This bone here is broken in life and healed. Probably when she was a child. It's a green stick fracture that healed. And I thought at this time that her teeth had been knocked in. Her, I don't know, that's almost like a DYAC. Broken pelvis. She has a broken pelvis probably in falling in, but the alteration of her teeth is not from the fall. So here's her arm, upper arm, right arm, left forearm, her legs, pelvis. She is female, clearly female. You can see the depth of that sciatic notch. That's what we look for to indicate a sex. Extremely gracile. These bones look kind of thick in this picture, but in fact, if you consider them, that's less than 2 centimeters in diameter, that femur. So she's really small. She also has physical characteristics that are consistent with being what we refer to as a Paleo-American. The earliest American skeletons do not look like modern American Indians. They look quite different. She has a long, high brain case. She doesn't have flaring cheekbones, which are characteristic of Native Americans and Northeast Asian peoples. She has a narrow, relatively short, projecting upper face. This projection here. Shovel-shaped incisors and a carabelli's cusp. She has a mix of dental characteristics, which is something we also see. Shovel-shaped incisors are common in Native Americans. Carabelli's cusps are extremely rare. And she has a lot of other characteristics that are not consistent with modern Native Americans. So that's what we see as the Paleo-Americans. We don't know. We did not know until we worked with Naya whether they were ancestors of modern Native Americans or not, or at least ancestors or even related from derived from the same gene pool, or did they come from separate migrations into the Americas? So with Naya, we have a number of questions to ask about her. How did she get there? When did she arrive? Who is she related to genetically? That question I just posed. What was she like as an individual? What were her characteristics as a person? What was going on with her life? And are she and the extinct animals the same age? So